Hey everyone, what's up? My name's Blue and welcome. Today the MSI started. This is going to be a quick little rundown, quick little recap with some thoughts from myself as well. First and foremost, it was the console PCL Teams versus the Paladins minor league teams, PC versus console, crossplay. It all went down today, and unfortunately, 0 of the 4 console teams were able to advance to the semifinals of the play-in bracket for the mid-season invitational. But before we go into the games and a couple thoughts from me, I want to just speak out to the PML teams. Congratulations. You guys were the favorites in those matchups, obviously. I predicted that Penta and Sour team would move on from my predictions. Unfortunately, I lost when Hype Unit beat Cyclone and Sanguine beat Flashpoint. I had it the other way around for both of those matches, but they were good games. I enjoyed watching them. They were interesting to say the least, but I'm proud of the console players. I know a lot of people associate me with console, and that needs to stop, frankly, because I cover numerous esports. Not only that, but I have clearly stated dozens of times that I watch PC since the very beginning of Paladins Esports. I probably know more about PC Paladins than 90% of this community outside of the players and the casters themselves. So still, we're going to be covering PPL and PML. That's kind of why we're talking about all of this all the time, but people just don't understand, I guess. But I want to say I'm proud of those console players. They didn't roll over. 99% of the community thought they were going to lose, and they did. But they didn't let that stop them. They didn't let that get in their way. What really sucks is that this was announced 2 months before the LAN even started. But the season had already began. Roster locks were already in place. Platform locks were already in place. So I think a majority of these players on these console teams, if they would have known that this would be what it was, then they wouldn't have played on console this season, maybe. I know a few of these players are looking to go to a PML team next year instead of having to go through this again. And I think they would have done that in the first place had they known beforehand. But it was announced after the season had already started. Roster locks, platform locks, all of that were already in place. So these people, they didn't know this until they were already locked to a console. Teams like Flashpoint and Elevate, they adapted the best they could. Those that stuck with the controller were limited because they either didn't have a PC to practice on or they had never played on PC in their lives. 2 months is not something, 2 months is not enough time to go up against these PML teams that have been doing this the entire time they've been playing Paladins on mouse and keyboard. You have players that did use mouse and keyboard, like Shu and Exodia and 3 members of Cyclone, 3 members of Flashpoint. They've been playing on PC for longer than those 2 months that they had to prepare for this. They've been playing on PC before, so it was just a matter of practicing Paladins on mouse and keyboard. But let's get into it real quick. Elevate versus Sour team was match number 1, and right off the bat, Elevate does not have emit pain, and that is the biggest gut punch to them, in my opinion. That's their best player. Now, this team is star-studded, and they did end up taking Sour team to, I think it was, they got 3-0'd. It was 3-0 in favor of Sour team. I think 2 of those, if not all of them, were 4-3s. Let me go ahead and bring up the score here. The first game was 4-1, and that was on Ice Mines. 4-3 and then 4-3. So one thing Elevate had to do was their drafts were really limited. Game 3, they actually went with what you would call a normal draft. They had the Vivian and the Victor, and Wonderful was playing the Vivian. And For those of you who watched my breakdown video before the matches even started, we posted it yesterday right here on the Console Pro News YouTube. If you watched that, I said, hey, Wonderful has played damage dozens of times already in his career. He's been to land twice playing damage. He's won one of those. But that was when it was a triple DPS heavy meta. And Genos had just come into the meta at that time, or he had just come into the game. He was super strong. And, you know, they were playing the solo tank Makoa with triple damage, and they were able to win that lane. And I stated in that video as well, in the breakdown, if Elevate wants to win this game, I think it's best if, you know, he sticks to the tanks, which he has done all this season, and he's done well on. And he's won 2 lanes on frontline. But he's been to 3 lands on damage, actually. I forgot he played damage at HRX. But you have to look at it this way. They are supremely, legitimately, just outrageously limited in their draft because Emit Payne's not there. That's their best player. He plays those hit scans super strong. He plays the blasters for their team as well. He's the one who would whip out a Cassie, even on controller. He's the one who would play this Leon at the top level. He's the one who would be playing these weird picks like Grok and so on when they need it. But he's not there, and they had to use their sub, which was Yui. Yui just came to this lane expecting to be the coach and run the drafts and stuff like that. But here he is having to play, and he also had to play on controller. Yui coming into the lineup, that's 3 frontline players. Wonderful's going to have to flex the DPS. They also went in there with this Death Ball 3 tank meta that they were trying to, you know, just death ball their way through pretty much. And it was working for some key moments. But the problem is that Sour Team, with the players that they have in Perdo and Sheepa and Ninu, they have the capacity to adapt to it mid-game, maybe even mid-round, which you saw. It's just like on Serpent Beach with the Amani Dragon. The Dragon wasn't working out. Trenzik played that beautifully, by the way, the first round when they were able to get a push through or close to a push. What happened was, you know, the Amani Dragon comes out, and then Trenzik puts up the Makoa shield. He's running half shell, puts up the shield. That takes all the damage to the shield was all the damage from the dragon that the shield could absorb was done. Then he stands in the doorway while he's getting healed by his team to absorb more damage to get the cooldown with Chronos to get that shield again, and he did within like 3 seconds, not even. So the dragon wasn't really working out at first, but they were able to adapt when to use that. Resilience came clutch for them, as well as some other PC teams as well in these matchups. So Elevate just had a really tough time. You know, a lot of people say, and I've said this before, you're going in there with a sub. Should be no excuses. You know you have to play with a sub. You should be practicing with your sub. Here's the thing about this one. Elevate didn't know they needed a sub until Friday night. That's not even 2 full days. So Yui shows up on Saturday or shows up on Friday. Team shows up on Friday, and they're like, guys, guess what? Yui's got to play. So I feel for them. Sour Team looking good, though. But Elevate able to take some points off of them. So, I mean, does that make Elevate look good? Yes, because they used a sub, and they were still able to contend in there with a Death Ball comp and having to run 3 tanks most of the time. Next up, we have Flashpoint versus Sanguine. This was one where I thought a console team was going to be able to take a W. Unfortunately, Flashpoint looked awful. They looked lost at times. And judging by these drafts, it looks like the first game, that seems like a draft they would run. They have the Talus, they have the Leon, the Genos, Barrack, and Khan. That's good. That's a nice draft for Flashpoint, even on PC, even with the mouse and keyboard. Doesn't matter. And of course, this was on Stone Keep, which was Flashpoint's best map. And they were first pick, so this was their map selection. The problem is that they weren't ready for this. The problem is that Sanguine's... Okay, so the 2 NA PML teams, you have Sanguine and you have Hype. For the side of Hype, you have Poison and you have Stigma. And they're really good DPS players. But the DPS duo of Sanguine with Neo and Edgem is much better. That's a harder DPS duo to have to play against. No offense to Stigma and Poison. They're top tier of PML. They're good, but Neo and Edgem looked flawless. And it was really tough for Flashpoint to have to deal with that. Let alone Flame Effects was just playing aggressive the whole time. I mean, he was punished a few times, but not as many as he should have been. But Flashpoint, they looked kind of lost after game one. They get 4-0'd. You know, you go in there saying, if we win game one, we're probably going to win this set. And then their morale goes down because of that. Or it was just kind of demoralizing. It kind of diminished them at that point. They still had, 4 more games to play possibly at that time, but it kind of fell apart from there. Some of the questionable things here, they strayed away what their strengths were. First of all, they banned Terminus. I personally don't understand why they did that right off the bat. I would have to process it and watch the game back a couple times and think about it. Why did they ban Terminus on Splitstone? I can't give you my answer right away. That's one of those things that I have to let sink into my mind and think about it and run some scenarios across. But then you see them pick the Victor. That's good. But I feel like they should have picked Victor more. Should have picked him all 3 games. The problem with this Victor pick, though, in game 2 was they picked it too early. I don't see Sanguine picking Victor at all or banning it. They didn't ban it. Once they don't ban it, I don't see them picking it. You can allow yourselves to play to that PC meta and then take that Victor later in the draft. They also took an Eevee. Skeppy may have felt comfortable on the Eevee going into this, but he didn't look comfortable against a team like this. And I know Skeppy's been gaming on PC for a while now, and he played CS:GO a lot, so he does have mechanics on PC. I just don't think that he was ready for an Eevee game against a team like Sanguine just yet. Game 3. They take the Vivian this time, and Prosper was doing a ton of damage with it. And Skeppy's Drogos was looking good too. Game 3 was a 4-2, and it looked better. They found some success on that map. Unfortunately, they were unable to close that one out, so that one was a bummer. That was probably the best chance they had at winning a game there. So it's okay. But, Prosper was pretty much a non-factor in game 1. Game 2, he did a little better. Game 3, it's like he was warmed up and he was ready to go. He was just pumping out DPS. But another player was Legacy. Couldn't really find success anytime. I think he had to play Con all 3 games. No, he played Barrack game 2. He just couldn't really... Legacy's a really aggressive frontline. Whether he's playing main tank or side tank, he's a really aggressive frontline. He wasn't able to play that aggressive. And I think that really put a little dark cloud above him. He wasn't able to really do what he's normally doing, and he wasn't able to adjust to that as well within the moment, I think it was. But Flashpoint, I think, looked the most disappointing to me. And I'll tell you why. Is because Nemesis, I didn't give them a chance against this team. They had 2 subs going in. So let's talk about it. We'll talk about the game that actually went 5. We'll talk about the match that went 5 games last. Nemesis versus Penta. Penta is really good. They're the closest thing to PPL that is in the PML right now. if you don't look at players individually and you don't look at like, oh, if we take these players from this team and these players from this team and put them together, that could be a PPL team. No, this is core lineup, main roster, 5 guys. This is the closest you have to PPL. Now, they're playing with a sub. They have Accentra in for Ovum. And that will show. That will be a factor later in the tournament. But that is not going to be a factor against Nemesis. Here's the problem I have with Nemesis. They had 2 subs. Richie and Destronite. Destronite would be playing for Richie on DPS. And for the second flex position, it was Cool Matt instead of SoldierBot. From what I've heard, okay, this is not a fact. From what I've heard, they didn't want to come to LAN because they would just lose, 1, and 2, they wouldn't make any money. This is what I've heard, okay? And I haven't talked to SoldierBot or Richie because I feel like they don't want to talk about it. I feel like they don't care to talk about it, and I feel like it would just be pointless for me to ask, because it would be the same result in the match. I mean, oh yeah, we couldn't go to LAN because of this legit reason. Oh, okay, well, they did the best they could. And if that is true, that they weren't going to make any money and they didn't want to go because they'd lose, then, I mean, that's sad, dude. There's 16 other players that showed up attempting to give it their best shot. And I say 16 because 5 from Elevate, 5 from Flashpoint, 5 from Cyclone, and 1 from Nemesis. And that was Jeff. It looked like Jeff, he can't do much. He's the support player, but he had been doing a lot this entire season for them. But against a team like Penta, even Jeff couldn't save them. I think let's break down this Nemesis roster, okay? Cool Matt's a really good player. But he bought a PC like 1 or 2 weeks ago. He wasn't ready coming into this. Then you have Jeff. I don't know if Jeff owns a computer. I think he doesn't, because he's always playing on Xbox. He plays in the league on PS4. And whenever I need to talk to him on Discord, he joins the call on his phone. So I'm not sure if he has a PC for gaming. I mean, he could have a computer in his house, but I'm not sure he has a PC for gaming. I'm not sure he's played on PC before, so that's unfortunate for him. The other 3 players here, I want to make some comments about them. First of all, Destronite. Look, I like Destro as a person, but as an analyst, I have to tell the truth, okay? And the truth is that Destro is not ready for top-tier console play. And that means he's definitely not ready for console versus PC play. There was 2 times I showed him on cam, and he was like leaning back in his chair. He just looked like he didn't care. And I get it. I understand why you don't care, but come on, man. And then there's Whoosh. I respect the hell out of Whoosh, man. He's one of the most decorative players in console Paladins as well, but when he tweets to someone, someone put a tweet out saying console needs their own LAN, and Whoosh says, didn't even try. Come on, man. Come on. Come on, man. I love you, Whoosh, but dude, even if you didn't try like you said, don't say that, at least, man. And then there's Calamity, or Dovahkiin. And I feel kind of bad for Dovo. Dovo's always been like this close to making a LAN. Last season with Cryptic. He finally makes a LAN. And he has to play against a PC team. A Penta, to be exact. I think Dovahkiin, he's climbed the ranks. He's done his dues. He's paid his dues. And I think that he's ready to compete at that top console level. But, you know, you look at these other players like Flashpoint's roster and Elevate's roster. These people have been to numerous LANs. They're up there. They've seen that success and they've seen that failure at the same time. And now they're more, I don't want to say because they lost, but I would say compared to Dovo or Calamity, whatever you want to call them, they're a little closer to giving PC a better match than he is at the moment. I mean, he finally makes a LAN and he doesn't, you know, get to try and win a championship. He gets fed through the meat grinder. So another problem I had with Nemesis was their game 1 draft, dude. Were they trying to get this over with as fast as possible? They gave up Torvald, Genos, and they just pocketed a Bomb King, which was Simsaloo. I mean, okay. Let's talk about Cyclone versus Heating Up. Cyclone won game 1, and that's really what set the tone for this. After that happened, everyone got really excited, and things start to change. Eventually, they ended up losing the set 3-2, and it came down to the wire. Not the wire. You know, it wasn't a 4-3, 9-9-9-9. It was 4-2, I believe. Let me make sure I don't speak wrong. Oh, no, it was a 4-3. Okay. I forgot they defended last second. Okay. All right, so it was 4-3. First of all, the Bazaar game, which was game 5, and that was a bizarre game. We're going to work backwards because who cares, right? That game, they just let Stigma do whatever he wanted on Leon. There was no one to really dive him. I think that was the problem. But once they were able to deal with Leon, it became all about Maeve, Poison. And Poison was on the Maeve. Poison played Maeve spectacularly twice, 2 games in a row, game 4 and game 5. And he was able to disrupt the backline. And Westside wasn't able to stay alive as many times. Plus T-Mac, by the way. T-Mac stayed alive so much in that game 5. He shouldn't have been able to do that at all. But he was. He had really good positioning. And he caught Welsh, who was playing Vivian that game, I think 4 or 5 times through time and space ultimate. So really good plays by T-Mac coming out of that. He pretty much carried that game, as well as I want to say he did it with a DPS player at the same time. It was Stigma for the first 2 rounds, and then the last 2 rounds were pretty much Poison. A lot of death ball, a lot of triple tanks coming out today from the console teams. So they tried to do it. Normally they tried to cheese their way, whatever it may have been. The Pip ult on the end of Ice Mines in game 2 is what gave Hype Unit that win. Cyclone would have been up 2-0 if that Pip ult didn't come through at the end. If Smutty would have chased Khan there when he was 1-shot, by the way, at the end of Bazaar, they would have won that game and just moved on, but they didn't. They could have won game 2. That was a brutal point fight, last point fight of that Ice Mines game. That was another one that went 4-3. But Poison, once again, coming out with a big play. He got Evil Mojo right there, last second, hit it right away, hit both tanks, and they were able to burn them fast enough, and they ended up winning the game after that play had ended. Game 1 was on Splitstone Quarry, and that's really where it came out. But at the beginning of game 2 and the game 1, Welshmania got 2 quadras. He got a quadra in each game, one on Tyro, one on Victor. And I point this out. Yeah, it was great play. Yeah, they still lost. But he was playing on controller. So, I mean, some of these players out here, Welsh tried, dude. Welsh and Fanatics actually get my MVP for today. Only because they were on controllers and they tried. No, Elevate tried. And Flashpoint's controller players, they tried. But these two guys, they tried, man. And Fanatics, by the way, was flick-shotting with Atlas, which is important because those are big numbers coming from his damage on Atlas. And he played a really good Atlas for the most part, most of the time. He played Ashe the last 2 games. The Stone Keep, they were able to stagger that one towards the end for longer than what the casters thought. And they started to find a couple kills, but no. Here's the thing. There were some people putting out tweets saying, oh, Cyclone's the best console team because of this. No. No. I still think Elevate and Flashpoint are better than Cyclone. The difference is 1-2 months ago, I stated Cyclone would have the better chance, in my opinion, against PC teams. Why? Especially after they picked up Westside. Kings wasn't able to go, so they picked up Westside to sub in for him. Guess what? Westside's been playing PC Paladins for like 2 years. Smutney has been playing PC Paladins since it came out. I think he was like closed beta, closed alpha even. He was on a team when the Esports first emerged for Paladin. So he's been playing on PC that long. So has Westside. And then you have Slop, who's been a keyboarder for a long time. He's played other games, other FPS games on keyboard. He was, you know, a little ready for this. Not as much as Smutney and West, but that's 3 players that have been playing keyboard for a long time, not to mention playing Paladins for a very long time on keyboard as well. And Smutney's been to LAN on keyboard before, so they had a better chance. Welsh and Fanatics did what they could. Cyclone took Hype Unit to 5 games, or rather, Hype Unit took Cyclone to game 5 because Cyclone was up 2-1, then it was 2-2, and eventually Hype won 3-2. So that's pretty much how that went down. I think we have a lot to learn from this. As a community, as a fan base, myself as an analyst, the players have a lot to learn from this, both PC and console, as well as skill shot. I think going into HRX should yield different results. First of all, no one has read the format post correctly, okay? No one's read the format post correctly. It's not, there's no console wars at HRX. Okay, there's a console wars at the placement LAN. All right? You guys remember every time before HRX happens, the bottom PPL teams, the ones that don't automatically qualify for the HRX championship bracket, the ones that don't, okay, and the top PML teams, they go into a bracket, and the winners who come out of that, the top 2 or 4 teams, whatever it may be, they go to the HRX bracket, right? They win the placement LAN, which is done at the Skillshot Studio. That's what the blog post says. It says that the console wars will be, the dedicated console wars will be at the placement LAN. It won't be at HRX. And then they will also have a chance in the crossplay tournament to try and make it to HRX. There will be no console wars at HRX. That is what the post says. People need to start understanding what they're reading. They may change that. Who knows? But I think now that the players know that this is coming, they won't have just 2 months to prepare. They won't just be surprised halfway through the season or halfway through the phase. Oh, hey guys, by the way, crossplay only. You have the option of using mouse and keyboard. Then they're all frantically trying to do mouse and keyboard in 2 months well enough to sustain themselves against the top PML teams that have been playing PC Paladins for 2 years for the most part. So, I mean, the timing of the announcement was terrible, but the console players did what they could. They did what they could. 90% of the community knew that, expected them to lose. I expected 2 of them to lose. But as an analyst, I told the truth, but as a fan, I was optimistic. So, whatever. I know they're going to get BM'd a lot, and that shouldn't happen. At the end of the day, we all play the same game. I mean, if Paladins goes offline, it's not like console's affected and PC's not, or PC is and console isn't. We're all affected. So, at the end of the day, we all play the same game. My name's Blue. That's been day 1 recap. You can check out the Twitter at Console Pro News. We have polls up going. Vote for who you think is going to win tomorrow's games in the play-in bracket. It's Sour Team versus Sanguine. And on the other side of the bracket, it's Penta versus Hype Unit. I personally have Sour Team and Penta moving through to the finals of the play-in bracket, actually, to the next round, whatever you may call it. So let us know who you think is going to advance. Go ahead and vote in the poll and keep grinding.